Welcome in to the I-80 Boys podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Boomer Vaca, I guess. That's what I was told today. And this, I guess, pickle smoocher over here to my, I guess would be my left, but to my right on the screen. Who are you again?
More of a Bud Light kind of connoisseur, I guess, if you will. I've been described as such, right? Now, I've been to Oklahoma once in my life, is really the way I like to introduce myself. Chris, I would say you said it best. You're a boomer. I'm significantly younger than you. That's how I'll address myself.
Yeah. You in this combine coming up, when I tear your ass up, from top to bottom, we'll be having a little more conversation on, who looks old and who looks slow. So
the only thing you're going to be tearing is a hamstring, you old fuck.
Touche. Good one, brother. Good one. Hey, I got to ask, like I always do, what the hell are we talking about today, man? What will we touch on, Christian? What's your topics for today, brother?
Man, we're going to get into an interesting topic. We're going to kind of veer off course, I feel like, for both of us here. And that is, we're going to get into a little bit of Oklahoma Sooners football, a little boomer Sooner here. We already got somebody in the chat here, Children of the Corn. He said, many respect points lost. Exactly. Right. And he said also, to follow up, that word isn't allowed in this state. Well, hey, listen.
He's not wrong. Wrong. That's probably the biggest rivalry ever for the Nebraska fans. You know what I mean? Oklahoma, game of the century. You talk to guys that are much older than me will tell you that Oklahoma and Nebraska is the greatest rivalry ever. And I tell you what, if you grew up in the 70s, 80s, that's probably true. So he's spot on.
Dad was a Texas fan, growing up. He was actually born in Oklahoma. I think that's his one detractor. My dad was. So okay. I think he's kind of embarrassed of that. But yeah, I can't stand Oklahoma. So this is kind of a weird thing for both of us, I feel like. But we're going to do it non-biased. We're going to do it justice. We're going to do it love.
All right. Let's do it.
All righty. So getting into it here, Chris, Oklahoma, it looks like we're looking at their season they had last year. Brent Venables' first season there, back at Oklahoma. It was kind of a rebuilding year for him, right? He went 6-7, 3-6 in the conference, which I think we can both kind of say we're not exactly Big 12 fans. We don't really think that's the upper echelon of college football at certain points of that conference. But to me, the defining point last year for them was the Texas game. They lost 49-0. Now, Dylan Gabriel was injured for that game, and I understand that. That kind of is a big, puts a bit of a cog in everything there, right? But still, there's no excuse for that. Even if you have a backup quarterback, you still got to be able to do something against your most hated rival. Chris, what are you thinking here, bud?
No, and you just hit on two of my big topics right there about Oklahoma. And speaking of last year, right? I mean, 6-7, that's a down year for Oklahoma. I don't care any way you fucking slice it. The shutout by Texas, I mean, that one has to hurt, right? That's like, you guys coming in and playing Alabama and you guys not scoring, right? I mean, that's got to be devastating to a Georgia fan base, right? Just like it was Oklahoma. That game, they call it Red River Shootout for a reason. I mean, most years that thing is in the 30s and the 40s, and it is a crazy, 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 crazy game. The other couple stats I would like to, touch on real quick about the preview here is defense last year finished 99th, I believe, in points per game. And I believe they finished like 122nd or something like that, yards given up. I mean, that's for a Brett Venables-led team. He's a defensive guy through and through, and I think he's a great defensive coordinator, obviously a head coach now. But, I mean, there's only so many teams in college football. I mean, that's rough. I mean, right, Christian? I mean, am I wrong here? Like, you wouldn't suspect that out of an Oklahoma defense even before with Bob Stoops, who's one of my favorite coaches of all time. I mean, it's tough to win when your defense is that bad, right?
Yeah, old Stoops, he had them locked in, and you're exactly right. I mean, that's why I call it kind of a rebuilding year, because they looked, again, they looked worse than they normally do, right? I mean, now we know Oklahoma, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit here down the road. I mean, they're not known for playing great defense in this, last decade or so, but But still, man, I mean, you're exactly right. They did finish 122nd in the country last year in total team defense. Here's the other side of it, and I think this is kind of what's needed to be said here. Yeah, Brent Venables is going to have to get certain pieces in place here to kind of get that defense fixed. To me, it's interesting because they're transitioning away from the Lincoln Riley, era, and also, they're getting ready to go into the SEC next year, right? So this is kind of a weird sort of in between year for them, where it's going to be really interesting to see what do they do this year? What kind of momentum can they build? And where do they go from it? I mean, they're going to be going into SEC play in 2024, obviously, with a new quarterback and certain pieces and everything like that. But this can be a very pivotal year, I think, for Brent Venables.
Right. And I want to just add on top of that, the thing with Brett, and I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I keep saying that there's a difference between being a great coordinator, whether it's offense or defense, and then being a head coach, right? The head coaching job there's a lot of fucking responsibilities that I think a lot of coaches, whether it's NFL, college, high school, don't completely understand until you're in that position, right? And I think with him, he doesn't have much to fall back on. That's what sucks. It's like, this is his second year. If they're not successful this year, this is kind of a Billy Napier type of thing, right? If you have another season where you go, even 6 or 7 wins this year, I think people are going, he's not the right guy for the job. And the only reason why I say that, I'm going to piss some people off here, but I'm being a realist, is that people want to win now in Oklahoma, man. They're a lot like Nebraska. You know what I mean? They're very similar in that, like, it's time to win, just like Florida, just like, basically like Michigan, even though they've had some success lately. But I mean, you know what I mean? There's a lot of like built up momentum every time you talk about a program like Oklahoma, right? I mean, I lived most of my life in the Big 12, and in Oklahoma was that team with Texas, Nebraska back in the day. I mean, those were the 3 teams that you talked about. And even go back to the Big 8, right? I mean, when I was little. So, like, it just I think he has to do something this year. And I mean, Oklahoma as a whole, they're going to have to prove something this year and get something done this year as far as wins and losses go. I mean, I watched the Oklahoma-Nebraska game last year in person. They beat the shit out of us. And I don't think they won a freaking game till the very end of the season there against Oklahoma State. And it was pretty rough, dude. I guess they did win a couple against Kansas and Iowa State, but those 2 teams sucked last year. So I just don't feel like 1 year is enough. And I don't think that's enough for any coach, even 2 years. But Christian, you know this as well as I do. The college landscape has changed so much as far as players moving, coaches moving. You basically have to win now. You only get a couple years. Scott Frost got 4, barely. And it was almost too much, So I hope for Brett, and I think I know he's a great defensive mind. If they can get that turned around this year a little bit, and we'll obviously dig deeper into that, but I'm very interested to hear your take coming up here on what you think for Oklahoma. I know you were relatively high on them a couple podcasts ago, but I'll leave you with that one, man.
Yeah, I think here's the big thing. I mean, you said it best, and it's funny because I've got it written down right here. A lot of people are saying this. We've got Daniel, longtime super fan now of the show here, starting to be anyways.
Yeah, I know. Washington. Love you, Daniel. I appreciate the love, man.
So he says going to have to hit the transfer portal to get his type of guys. Absolutely. I mean, Venables, like we've talked about, he's going to have to improve that defense. I mean, that's his bread and butter. Another fan of the show here, Children of the Corn, says Lincoln Riley is a sellout in his, in his eyes. Just saying, yeah, exactly. I mean, most Oklahoma fans, they call him that bitch out west, I think, is what they call him now. So you're exactly right there. Here's really where I think they've got a little bit of momentum coming into this year, Chris. They are coming off a loss to FSU in the Cheez-It Bowl. It was a super, super close game, 35-32. Right. And they were the number 13 team in the country. Now, hopefully we didn't piss all the FSU fans off with our last take that we did in the last podcast. Yeah. But that's just how the cookie crumbles sometime here. You talk about defense, and I'll kind of do a quick little dive into this. They're led by Ted Roof. He's a former Georgia Tech linebacker is where he played at, right? And recently he's coming over from Clemson. He was a defensive assistant there under Venables. Man, I think if you really want to summarize last year and you want to do it justice, I think it's the same narrative that has plagued Oklahoma in years past, right? And that is, other than their record, that was really the big key there. They had an electrifying offense. They had a defense that couldn't stop a fucking nosebleed last year. I mean, that defense looked, I mean, it was pretty bad. So, but I'm not hitting the panic button on them yet. Okay. Why am I not hitting the panic button? Well, let's just kind of click over here. This is this year's recruiting rankings coming into this season, right?
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I love about Brent Venables. He's done a great job recruiting. That's the thing. That's where I forgot to mention that earlier, not to cut you off, but damn, dude, the guy has done a great job recruiting. That's where it almost, like, to me, like, even solidifies the fact that, like, they have to perform this year. And I'll let you talk now, but you're exactly right. I mean, look at the numbers right there.
Yeah, exactly. They finished number 4 in the country this year. Unfortunately, though, you see who's right above them there.
Yeah, I almost busted out the Texas jersey today. I almost did it, but we're not talking about Texas.
No. So, but that's still a damn good job right there. I mean, to finish inside the top 5, I mean, that's a pretty great job by Venables. That just shows what he can do when he's got that kind of that proper recruiting there. So I think this is going to be a big bounce back year for him. Let's kind of get a little more into what we can look forward to this year with him. Sound good, Chris?
Absolutely. Let's go, buddy.
Okay, so on offense this year, obviously Dylan Gabriel is going to be back. Now, this is kind of what I've seen, okay? He's going to have to step his game up. Again, he didn't have a bad year by all intents and purposes last year, but he didn't have an elite year. You know, when you think about the recent run Oklahoma has had on quarterbacks there, you know, you've got Baker Mayfield, you've got Kyler Murray, you've got Jalen Hurts. I mean, hell, even Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler were pretty good, right? Now, Spencer Rattler obviously lost the job to Williams, and they've both since transferred, but they've still had a really good, they've had an embarrassment of riches at the quarterback position at Oklahoma.
Yeah, and you touch on it perfectly. And this is where I think, like, I'm not worried about Oklahoma this year putting up points. Dylan Gabriel, we know his history, and we know the guy can play. And like I said, again, I'm going to bring this up. I watched him in person dismantle Nebraska in that game. And in Nebraska last year, that's not saying much, let's be honest, to piss off a couple of Nebraska fans. But the guy that they love to go to is Marvin Mims Jr. This kid's a stud. He is. He's very underrated. He put up some big numbers last year. It's just the fact that, like you said, like you look on the defensive side of the ball, and the Bob Stoops early era, Oklahoma was just fucking amazing on the defensive side of the ball. They've trickled back. And we say this, Christian, I think you would agree with me. The Big 12 defenses are pretty weak. You know what I mean? It's usually a shootout in most of those games. You just bring it up a little bit ago about the scores, last year with Oklahoma in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 30s. Nobody's playing any defense. That's where I think they need to make the turn, and I'll make my predictions here later about where I think they finish this year. But you're exactly right. It's not that they don't, like, their offenses are amazing. I mean, Lincoln Riley kind of revamped that whole thing, right? Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, bringing in these top tier quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel is definitely no scrub. I think we all know that. Marvin Mims, Jr. They got Eric Gray back. I mean, they've had some really good players on the offensive side of the ball. Basically, it comes down to whether or not you can play defense. Christian, would you not agree?
Yeah, no, I exactly agree with you. I mean, defense is going to be the biggest question mark this year. I think, again, and we talk about it, and I kind of have this written down here, okay? And I'm going to kind of skip to it here. You're kind of getting me to skip a little bit ahead, but I'll play your game, Chris, here, just because I can play it better than you. Gabriel's played a ton of college football, right? And will most likely have to try and overcome bad defense again this year, okay? He is going to have to be better to overcome a bad defense. Sometimes in this landscape, the easiest way to overcome, shitty defense is just by simply being more electric on offense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that kind of Lincoln Riley, his whole MO, especially over there at USC?
100%, dude. And that's kind of how he's always been. He's never been known as a defensive guy. Let's be honest here. And that's what he's doing at USC. They get in these shootout type of games. They remind me of the Rams back in the day in the NFL when Kurt Warner and the greatest show on turf, right? they're one of the like 20 teams or 20 years, one team out of 20 years that you could think of like, you know what, these guys are just going to outscore you. And what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? That's kind of whoever has the ball last type of mentality. That's kind of what Oklahoma, like, which is odd. That's why I think they brought in Brett, is to revamp the defense. And we got to give him another year here, obviously, and see what he can do. But Oklahoma has been lacking on defense for a lot of years. Let's be honest. I think a lot of Oklahoma fans would agree.
Now, do you just not like Venables or Oklahoma?
No. I do. They're actually my favorite team in the Big 12. That's why I'm so like adamant about where they're at. And Oklahoma, when I was a kid growing up, like was so great on defense, you know?
You keep seeming to troll them because you keep calling Brent Venables Brett,
whatever. Sorry. I guess, yeah.
You've got the alleged lawsuit going on against your boy, Pat McAfee. I get it. And you can't get him out of your head.
I was the guy that actually filed it, by the way. My name is Brett Favre on the side. I can throw like that guy, by the way.
Well, childhood hero there, bro.
It is
on the football field.
Well, maybe in the locker room too for you, Christian. We've heard the stories about Brett Favre. So,
anyways, So hey, but there is some reports kind of floating around that Jackson Arnold, who by the way was number 4 quarterback last year in that class and a no doubt 5-star player, he's kind of pushing Gabriel for a little bit of playing time there, right? He's keeping him on his toes, man. So I'm just saying the quarterback position, and I definitely think Jackson Arnold's going to be the future there in Oklahoma. It's going to be interesting to say the least. So Dylan Gabriel, I think he will step up. I think he will have a bigger year this year, or a better year than last year. And it's not to say he didn't have a good year last year.
No, he had a good year for as like college quarterbacks go, but like I think he can. This year is like kind of the telltale sign of like how good he can be. You know what I mean? Because like this team is back. He's, last year was a new system, right, Christian? We know how that is.
Yeah. Sam
Hartman could fucking fall on his face this year. I mean, hell, he might not even be the starting quarterback currently. So from the reports that I'm hearing, so which is crazy. ACC's all, time leading touchdown passer. So not saying that's it. Don't write that down. Don't take that as gospel, please. But it could happen, right? I mean, obviously most coaches, especially in college football at this level, and you're a powerhouse school, you're going to play the best player at the position. So I expect good things out of Dylan. I think he's going to be starting the season unless he literally completely falls off the freaking map. I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think their offense is going to be just fine. Again, I keep bringing up their defense. So I think you would agree with me that their defense is kind of where it's the question mark, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, 100%. I agree with you. Defensively, they have to get much better, and there is no question about that. I'm going to do more of a deep dive into the defense here in just a bit. A big piece of that offense is gone. A couple pieces of that big pieces of that offense are gone this year, right? Eric Gray, who transferred in from Tennessee, right? He was a running back 1 last year. He's gone. He put up 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns last year. They do get, however, Javonte Barnes, Marcus Majors, and Gavin Sawchuk back. They're going to carry the load for him this year, right? They all combined for 951 yards last year and 11 touches. I think they can all, sort of by committee be much, much better. I think they can be much better. They can kind of replicate that production that Eric Gray leaves behind. Also, we talk about their leading wide receivers or their leading receivers from last year. Marvin Mims Jr., he's off to the NFL, and tight end Braden Willis, who, both those guys combined for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. They are both gone. What is interesting, though, Chris.
So I got to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Mims is gone?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Not to go on air and not be prepared or anything, but I thought he was coming back. Christian, I thought he was. I thought he was going to be a junior this year. I'm just, maybe I'm wrong. Jack, can you help me out here? Like, am I off on this guy? Did he declare and I just didn't know?
He did.
How? Hey, now I feel like a fucking idiot, I guess.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Hashtag idiot. Okay.
Well, hey, no. Listen, it's okay. This is a troll job, but it's a very subtle troll job. You have to really look for it. Chris is just.
Damn, man! I knew he like was talking about it. I did not know that. Sorry to switch up the podcast here with that. I did not. I thought he was coming back. I knew there were talks about him going. I did not realize we got Children of the Corn coming in here with. He goes, I thought he changed his mind, but I guess I thought he was coming back this year. Okay, either way, man. I mean, he was a guy that I watched. He tore up Nebraska last year. That was a guy I was like, damn, this kid. I knew about him beforehand, but damn. Okay, maybe I'm wrong on that though. Go ahead, Christian, with what you're saying. I apologize.
Yeah, so like I was saying, anyways, getting back into it here. Yeah, so they're bringing back Jalil Farouk. They're bringing back Jake Stoops, and they're bringing back, I should say here. They're bringing back Austin Stogner, who started at Oklahoma. Then he transferred to South Carolina with Spencer Rattler. Now he's transferring back to OU. All three of those players, they combined for 1,069 yards last year and 9 touchdowns. So I think Stogner is going to have a little bit better year in that offense. They really like to rely on the tight end. I like it. It's a good matchup there. Chris, what are your last thoughts here on OU offense before we get into the defense here?
I mean, yeah, before we get into defense, I really don't have much to say. I think without Marvin Mims, which it sounds like with my report, like I was saying earlier, he did declare, which is fine. Either way, Oklahoma's always had really good receivers there, so it's not a matter of that. Even though I think having him come back another year would really, really, really help them out. I think they're going to be fine. Like I said, I do. I mean, the pack, or Jesus Christ, the Big 12 is very, I would say, suspect on defense for the most part. Most of the time, I think Oklahoma obviously can put up some points, so it's not a matter of that. And I think that's where we're going to dig a little bit deeper here into the defense. And I think, like I said, with the stats I brought up earlier, finishing 100th basically last year in points per game, and I mean, they gave up 122nd in the country in yards per game given up. That's just, you're not going to win a lot of games that way. You're not. Nebraska's been in that same boat too, which is my team. I mean, you're a Georgia fan, clearly, with all that Georgia crap behind you, as I keep mentioning. You obviously don't have to worry about that right now with Georgia. They seem to be a top 10 defense every year, but that's how you win championships, right? That's why you guys are at the top of the totem pole, man.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, you definitely have to have some depth, and you have to be able to kind of restock the cupboards when people are leaving, and you're sort of, coming into these years. There's a lot of, and we're going to get, by the way, later on in the show here, at the very end of the show, stick around to the very end here, because we've got something really special coming up for a much, much loved rival. But yeah, you have to be able to replace talent. You have to be able to develop and coach, and it has to come from areas where, again, you weren't expecting it, right? So that to me is such a big thing. I mean, Daniel Dill, he kind of talked about it a little bit earlier up in the chat, and it's not just about getting guys from the portal. You also have to be able to develop those guys. It's not about just getting top recruiting classes. You have to keep them and develop them. And that's such a big thing, I think, in college football that gets overlooked, is really some of the time it just kind of comes down to who can do the best job at kind of keeping the glue of the team together, keeping, players in-house and not letting them transfer out.
No, 100% agree, Christian. I think we can move on to the defense here and move into that. I think you're exactly right, though. I like I said, Oklahoma's always been good for recruiting kids. I mean, they like I said, they had a great recruiting class the last couple of years with Venables. Like I don't see how that doesn't work out as far as talent on the field. I always make the comparison to Nebraska. That's my team. Nebraska's always had a top 25, recruiting class, but can you develop those guys? Can they produce it on the field? That's the biggest part. You know what I mean? And I think that's where Oklahoma's at right now. And I think that's where this season's going to rely upon, is like, did you bring in enough talent? Did you guys, I mean, the Big 12 isn't the toughest, conference in the world. Oklahoma always is one of those names like that resonates with probably every college fan. Like, okay, they're going to be up there for that title, right? It's them in Texas most years. But again, Big 12 though, we'll get into this a little deeper. Seems like every year, Christian, as well as I do, brother, you're throwing a dart at a dartboard. You know what I mean? For the Big 12 title contender, TCU last year, Baylor the year before. I mean, there seems like there's always like some random ass team. K-State's always been relevant the last how many years? Iowa State. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little too watered down of a conference, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little too watered down. it's not like you're playing world beater competition. I understand TCU did a great job. I know Baylor's had some good seasons. Oklahoma State Oklahoma State. They've always kind of done some things in different games, and they've kind of been nationally relevant for the last 20 years or so. They've done a really great job. I mean, there's a lot of really decent teams, but here's the thing. I mean, and you think about it for the most part, other than TCU kind of upsetting Michigan last year and then getting routed in that game. I mean,
God,
when's the last time a Big 12 team has really done something of note in the college football playoffs, let alone win a natty?
I mean, the thing that kills me is like Texas. You always expect them to be up there along with Oklahoma, and it's been years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oklahoma's been notorious for losing a crazy ass bowl game to somebody they should beat, right? Boise State back in the day. You can name a few others too. You know, it's just like, God damn, like they just don't. You said watered down, and that's probably the best statement I can make as well too. You know what I mean? I just don't see how some of these schools in the Big 12, it's like Oklahoma State's going to be good. Iowa State with Brock Purdy years were pretty relevant. You know, K-State last year was, you know, they beat TCU in the Big 12 title game, right? That was a hell of a game. Max Duggan like played out of his ass and played like a madman in that game, and they still lost in overtime. So like, it's tough. The Big 12 is like literally like throwing a dart at a dartboard. I keep saying and using that analogy, but that's what it's like. It's like there's going to be somebody that comes out of there that's going to surprise, whether it's Texas Tech or, you know, maybe I don't know. I mean, I don't want to use the word Kansas or K-State, but I mean, they could be in that hunt too. It could be somebody that nobody expected TCU last year to do what they did.
Yeah, I mean, again, nobody expected them to do that. You know, Children of the Corn says Oklahoma stuck a fat one, or
crazy
stuck a fat one. Yeah. Here's the big thing, and I'll tell you this: that was still, to me, that was a pretty damn good game. That Oklahoma Boise State game.
Oh, I mean, that was amazing to watch.
One of the best college football games out there. They choked it, but that was a tough one. I mean, Chris, what happened in that national championship game, by the way, with TCU? How'd their season end up there?
You know, it ended up where I believe you made the statement, and I as much as I fucking want to hate on you and your Georgia team, I mean, you said their second team would have still beaten TCU, and it pretty much looked like that in the second half. I will say this: it's not that I am not happy about TCU and what they did last year, but I don't even know if they deserve to be in a playoff, and I'm going to piss a lot of people off with that statement. I want the four best teams in the playoffs last year. TCU, what they did to Michigan. Michigan looked like they never played a fucking football game in like 3 months before they played TCU. But I will say this. You asked the question about Georgia. Yeah, it was a total dismantling of a team. It just was. And TCU played, like Children of the Corn said, they played sloppy. Sloppy's probably an overstatement. I mean, it was god-awful. I mean, this Georgia had, and that's the measuring stick, right? If you're TCU, come out of the Big 12, you win a game that you probably shouldn't have won against Michigan, but you won it anyway, and give them props that 100%. Great. Problem is you ran into the yardstick, which is Georgia. And Georgia not only beat you by, not only like Georgia dominated you in the second half, and it was a game for 1 quarter or 2 quarter, that fucker was over within the first 8 minutes. And that's where it's like, okay. And TCU had a lot of momentum into that game, man. It was just like Georgia's just hands down so much better than you. Ohio State would have been a team that TCU I don't think could have touched either. I think they would have played Michigan probably 100 times. Michigan probably would have won 99. They won that one game, Christian. And that, please don't TCU people take that as a knock. It was just the differential between talent it was very evident in the Georgia game. I'll say that, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly right. I'll finish it up on this. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, when you're running a race, right? You know, it's like you're running a race and you're running and, you know, you just run as hard as you can, and you're not really paying attention to who's in front of you. You're keeping your head down, and you kind of start out of your peripheral vision seeing, hey, I'm passing this team and passing that team, and eventually you cross the finish line, and the person that ends up beating you, not only you came in second, but they not only beat you, They had time to go and get a sandwich, come back, smoke a cigarette, take a group picture, do all this stuff. I mean, and it wasn't even like a close sort of finish. It was like, no, you got your ass handed to you, and it sucks. I like TCU. I think they're a great team. We're getting back to OU here, and the reference of this was just, it's hard because you fight really hard to win the conference, and then you go against more of the national brand out there. And just like Texas and Oklahoma are getting ready to figure out, careful what you wish for. The SEC is getting ready to be a whole nother beast here.
And it's coming. I'm glad you touched on that, dude. Oklahoma loses a lot of players after this year into next year and going in the SEC, right? I hope they're successful. Like I said, Oklahoma's my favorite Big 12 team, so I hope they're successful. But we're realists on the show. We're talking about what's real and what we actually think is going to happen, not what we hope is going to happen, right? There's a big difference. So, yeah, exactly. SEC play is a little bit different animal, right? From the Pac-12, I keep saying the Pac-12 because I compare the Pac-12 to the Big 12. I think they're very similar in a way. But, yeah, the SEC, a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, and I'll get in here, too. I'll finish up on the defense, then we'll kind of get into, what we expect for them and their record and our predictions for them this year, okay? So they're bringing back their leading tackler, linebacker, Danny Stutzman, who had 124 tackles last year, 3 sacks, 5 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions. I mean, he balled out. He had himself a good year right there. I mean, he's gonna have to keep it up this year. Okay. Now they bring in Randall. Okay, Bothroyd. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that name right there, from Wake Forest. He had 6 sacks last year to go alongside of 2 forced fumbles. This is probably the big addition that they bring in via the portal on that defensive line. They're also bringing back, looks like, Ethan Downs. All right, he had 4.5 sacks, 3 pass deflections, and a forced fumble. So if they can kind of build on that and they can start getting to the quarterback, and this is such a big thing and that we talk about in college football. Now, I don't really necessarily go on these long-winded rants, about individual positions that often, but I will say this. You know how you can get around having a bad secondary, Chris?
Having a great front 4.
Yeah, having a great front 4, having a great front 7, being able to put pressure on a quarterback. In today's game where you can't really have any kind of pass interference, you can't do anything. It's all geared to help the offense. You have to be able to put pressure in their face. You have to be able to put pressure in someone's face, and that's the best way to get people out of rhythm. You get someone out of rhythm, now all of a sudden, hey, the secondary, you start playing with a little bit of confidence. It's not the other way around, because if you start trying to do it the other way around, you're not generating pressure. That's a hard game to play there, brother. I don't care how good of a defensive back you are. It starts to get pretty damn hard.
Well, so I think we've seen that, right, out of just average to good defenses, is where most defenses, you got to have that front 4. I think that's probably the most important on defense, like as far as positions go. If you can generate some pressure, make that quarterback get rid of it quicker, whatever, makes your DBs look better, right? It's hard to have great DBs and no pressure. You can only cover a fucking receiver for so long. Trust me, I've been there. Like, you can, what I mean? Like, you can, if you don't have any, I mean, look at Nebraska last year is a perfect freaking example. They had young secondary, but those guys were still pretty skilled for the most part. You don't generate a pass rush. I mean, you get like 5 sacks on the season. Pretty tough to cover somebody for 10 seconds. You know what I mean? I don't care how good or bad the receiver is. Like, it's like, and that's where I think you just touched on it perfectly, Christian, was like Oklahoma's defense. They got to get, they've always been known for really good linebackers. You got to, and we'll say the front 7. I mean, you got to be able to put pressure on the quarterback. That'll help that young secondary out. They'll help some of those guys out and make them look better, especially in a conference like the Big 12, where a lot of teams like to put up points. They like to run. Everybody runs the spread in that conference. It's like, if you can get a guy out of his rhythm, even if it's half a second, I mean, you look at the NFL. That's how everything's based off of that. It's like, if Oklahoma can do that this year, I think we're looking at a different Oklahoma Sooners team. Would you not agree?
Oh yeah, 100%. If they can start generating that pressure, and I mean, really forcing, quarterbacks to play elite against them, and have to pretty much be on par and stay in that rhythm, then, like I said, that defense has a really good shot, and they can really significantly get a lot better this year, I think, from a record standpoint anyways. Big thing too is like I said, they went out and they got some different pieces in the portal that can make instant impacts. I think they go out and they get Dasan McCullough from Indiana. He should help bolster that linebacker room a lot for him. Their secondary is going to be led by safety Billy Bowman Jr. He had 3 picks last year, 5 deflections. He's going to kind of be their sort of center fielder back there, helping them out. They bring back Woody Washington as a cornerback. Now, this is what I like, okay? As a cornerback last year, he had 67 tackles.
Wow.
That's he finished, I think,
it's not bad, though.
I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. You know, a lot of cornerbacks, they don't like to necessarily tackle. That might fire some people up, but they don't necessarily like to tackle, you know, or come up and play in run support, right? They kind of like to kind of be able to, the coverage skills are more is really what it's about, right? But he had 67 tackles. He wasn't scared to get in there and mix it up. I like that. You look at a lot of these, and this is kind of their defensive side here. You know, normally it's a lot of linebackers, a lot of safeties. So if you ever see a defensive back in the top 5 or a defensive lineman in the top 5 here of total tackles, they're around the ball a lot.
Okay, but can I throw this back at you though, real quick to interrupt you there?
Yeah,
it's probably not a good thing that your secondary is making a shit ton of tackles either. You know what I mean? That means maybe your linebackers, who I would assume should be making tackles. I'm playing devil's advocate here. You know what I mean, Christian?
I'll throw it back here, and I know some of our listeners on here aren't going to like it. I mean, compare that to Nebraska last year. I mean, would you not say that once you got somebody out in open space, they looked like they didn't know what the hell they were doing? They didn't know how to tackle. So I would take somebody that makes a lot of tackles, that has a lot of experience and can wrap up and actually get someone to the ground, than the other side of it. That's all I'm saying here. Okay. You know, somebody here says that knows you said being 6'3", which you're not 6'3", you're like 4'11".
6'1.25", but good try.
He's shrinking in his age. That's what it is.
He's got a good point.
Yeah, I'll say that you got that leverage and that length, and that does help. So wait, I'm 6'2.5". So does that mean I could play corner right now?
No, not at 3 bills. No, you're not running with guys like me that ran a 4.5. Let's go, Christian. Come on,
dude. I'm the Jared Lorenzen.
I know you needed that comment to bring your comment in and make you feel like you're relevant as a skill position player. But let's be honest, Christian. You the only skill you got is something like deep throating hot dogs and all you can eat contests and shit like that. Let's go.
Fucking the glizzy gobbler. What is it called? The glizzy gobbler. That's what it is.
Gobbler. That's exactly. I got a kid in this house that talks about that all the time. I'm gonna call you that. That should be your new nickname, the glizzy gobbler.
That's what the kids say, bro. Listen, I'm the Jared Lorenzen of cornerbacks over here. All right. Yeah. Here's my last piece on their defense. We'll get into their schedule after this. Okay. The biggest things on defense and the biggest question marks to me from a spring to kind of as we get into the season, preseason sort of question mark is the other safety and their other cornerback spot, right?
Okay.
They get Reggie Peterson, who's coming in from Texas Tech. He started off at Wisconsin. The 2-time transfer was at Wisconsin, then moved to Texas Tech. He's going to be coming in. He had 2 interceptions last year, and he also had 44 tackles in that free safety spot is where they're going to plug him at. To me, that is going to be a huge thing for them. I think they have to be able to figure that out. I mean, you got to have somebody to kind of go back there and make sure they don't get taken advantage of over the top. And also, if you do have an elite shutdown corner, they're just going to pick on the other cornerback. So you're going to have those things and those position players step up on defense. If they do that and they get that addressed, I think they'll be all right on defense. Children of the Corn, and I'll say this here, he says, I could compete at Coney Island. Might have done that a time or two.
Dude, you would be that guy, dude. You're like the spokesman, actually, now that I think about it. You're the perfect image of that. I fucking love it, dude.
I fucking think of Coney Island. It feels like I should be wearing like cargo shorts walking down like a boardwalk somewhere.
You look like a guy that would do that, though.
Like a ponytail?
Yeah. Oh, for sure, Christian. Yeah, you look like that guy, drinking your fucking your seltzer. I mean, you look like that type of guy, bro. I mean, let's be honest. Come on, man. I fucking love it, dude. This is why I love doing this. cracks me up.
Yeah, bro. You gotta have a little bit of fun with it. I think. I mean, you can't just be that way. I know I would get decimated if I tried to. I mean, not against Chris, but I mean, like against like actual competition, I would probably get decimated.
Oh God, dude, I am the competition. What are you talking about, bro? You want to line up outside with me yet at 38 years old? Come on, bro.
Come on, man. You sound like someone's dad or someone's grandpa, bro.
I am someone's dad. I mean, I know you don't know what it takes to make kids yet, but someday you'll figure it out. Don't worry how that's done.
I got to figure out. You've heard of Revis Island? I'm Coney Island over here, baby.
Shit, here we go. Don't even get that chance started.
Let's take a look at this. Let's jump into. Are you ready to jump into their schedule? Then,
yeah, let's
Chris?
do it. I am excited about this because I know you're very high on Oklahoma this year. This is why I want to this was kind of my big topic for the night when I saw the sheet. So,
all right. So we're gonna look at their schedule. Let me pull it up here for us, so that way we can all set realistic expectations. Boom, there we go.
Okay.
All right. I want you to start us off. What do you think? What are you thinking there?
Okay, here's the deal with Oklahoma this year, man. And I like I said, I'm going to say this before I fucking start. I love Oklahoma personally. Like they're not somebody I hate. Like I talk a lot of shit about USC. I talk a lot of shit about Colorado and teams like that. But here's the thing. We'll start it off here. Arkansas State, I think it's a W. SMU is going to. I think SMU they're one of those teams that do put up a lot of points. That's a W. I think Tulsa, it's a W. Cincinnati's a little scary in that American Conference. They've been relevant. I know you sit there and smirk, Christian, and that's okay. We'll let you talk here in a minute about your Cincinnati team this year, apparently. But I think Oklahoma goes 4-0. I'm high on Oklahoma, man. I am. But you get into that Big 12 schedule where I keep talking about darts at a dartboard, dude. Iowa State's going to be tough. I think the Texas game, and this is where I actually determined the Big 12 winner this year, and I think Texas is going to be better than Oklahoma this year. And I hate saying that. I'm an Oklahoma fan as far as personally, who I'm rooting for there, but I think Texas wins that one. Central Florida, isn't that what's his bucket's ex school? Am I not wrong?
Scott Frost / Gene Chizik. Oh, no. Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel. You came from, that's kind of ironic. Again, we have the same thing with Sam Hartman playing against Wake Forest. So that's kind of cool. You don't see that a lot. Kansas, Oklahoma State. I mean, again, you're asking me to I know you're gonna run through this whole schedule and give me like a 10-1 season from Oklahoma or 11-1. I think they end up with 2 or 3 losses, Christian. I'm gonna say 3. And I hate saying that. I'm just so, and the reason what it comes down to, it's not the offense. It's not. It's can, Brent get the shit figured out on the defensive side of the ball. And I just don't know after 2 years, after the Lincoln Riley era, I just don't know if that's enough. And I agree with Daniel. I mean, he's right up there with me. I think maybe 9-3 and 4. And I just don't see it happening this year, man. And I don't get me wrong. I don't think that's grounds to fire Venables. I just think that it's this year is just going to be tough, but they're definitely, if they have a 7-5 year, like Daniel just pointed there, then I think you get into the Billy Napier type of thing. Like I think Oklahoma fans want to fucking win now. And I think that's a tough thing with college football right now, man. I truly do. I really do, Christian. And so I will put my foot down. I will say something here. I'm going to say they get 9 wins. If it's less than that, I will be surprised, I guess, a little bit. But just because I think this team is better than the what would they go 7-5 last year? I mean, they got to be better. So yeah, exactly. So 6 and 7. Yeah. So they got to be better. If they're not, my God, man, then they're looking at some serious problems over there at Oklahoma.
All right. I'm going to give you my predictions on it. I think they don't play anybody. I mean, really and truly, they do not play anybody until October 7th.
Well, 100%. But do you throw out, though, Iowa State has played them tough a lot of times, dude. I know this isn't Brock Purdy. I get it. You don't have Breece Hall back there. I understand that. But I'm interrupting you quickly here, but do you really think that this, the Big 12, like what TCU did last year and knocked off a lot of teams that nobody thought they were going to do, you think Iowa State's just a fucking cakewalk?
I don't think they're a cakewalk, but I do think that I think They can beat them, dude. I mean, they're absolutely, I think, can beat them. And it's not about can they. I just think in my own heart of hearts, they should beat them from a talent standpoint. I like Venables. The defense should be much more improved. Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, right off the rip. It's gobbledygook to sit here and say that they're going to lose those games. Cincinnati, it is at Cincinnati, but this is also a team that doesn't have Luke Fickell roaming those sidelines anymore, right?
Agreed.
And so I would probably guess Cincinnati's probably not going to look like the same old Cincinnati we've seen over the last couple of years. So give me that one. I think they should, again, assuming they stay relatively healthy coming through that slate of schedules, they should easily be able to knock off Iowa State there. And they go into Texas, what is that? 5-0 at that point. You're heading into Texas 5-0. Here's where I see it at. And this is the schedule that I'm looking at just from the whole standpoint of their schedule. This could really bode well as they're going to get some confidence early heading into Texas, right? I'm not going to pick that they beat Texas. I'm going to just go ahead and throw that out right now. I think Texas beats them this year. But they can get some confidence going into Texas. They probably have a hiccup, and then they keep on with it. Here's the problem I have, and this is from a long-term standpoint. This schedule will not do them any favors going into the SEC next year. Not a single fucking favor.
No, and you're exactly right. Unfortunately, Christian, we're talking about this year. So take your SEC shit and run it down the road because I know you're so fucking balls deep into the SEC. I knew it was coming. I know you like to flaunt that little chode of yours around. But here's the deal. You're right. And I will agree with you up into the point where they're playing against Texas. I think that Oklahoma probably should be 5-0 up into that point. I'm gonna move through mine here real quickly, even though I went through them though. Like I'm not worried about Central Florida after the game, right? I say Texas wins that game. Kansas, not overly worried either, but Oklahoma State, I know they got no Spencer Sanders there. He's down at Ole Miss now. West Virginia, BYU, I don't really know much about BYU, I'll be honest, but I don't think TCU is going to be a fucking cakewalk either. So I would like to know your thoughts these last 5-6 games here and tell me, I said 3 losses for Oklahoma, and you did this with me last week, and you fucked me over when you said, they're going to have a loss out of those last 4 games. You just couldn't give me a distinct team. What do you think here in the last 5 or 6 games? Because we agree up into this point.
Okay. I got them going 10-2 is my prediction.
Okay.
I'm going to say I got a slash. I think Oklahoma State's the one that beats them. It's either Oklahoma State or they beat Oklahoma State, lose to Texas, so there's one loss there, and then they just have a random weird-ass loss. I mean, I don't see them. I don't see a 3-loss season in the regular season. I see a 2-loss season, but like I said, man, I just see them. I just see a 2-loss season for them. I think Oklahoma State, if anybody throughout that part of it, if they are much more improved on the defensive side of the ball and they gel together on offense, I think Oklahoma State would be the team to beat them. Now, there is an interesting schedule. There is something interesting here. Children of the Corn says Alabama always has an easy schedule and runs out. They've had the easiest schedule in history. Well, I disagree here because the SEC West is one of the hardest conferences out there.
I agree. That's where I was
in college football.
I agree to an extent. But then it's like you got to look at that fucking side of the bracket, though. Like there's some teams in there. LSU has never been a cakewalk. No. Auburn. Do I have to bring that name up?
Oh,
it don't matter their fucking record, Christian. You know this.
Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Well, Texas A&M last year wasn't great, but Texas A&M plays them really, really close.
They do. Johnny Manziel. We could go back to that. Wasn't that long ago, even though the guy was a clown. But we you know what I'm saying? Like there's some teams in there. Alabama, to me, actually, I'm not saying their schedule is like brutal every year in and year out, but they're also at a different level than I would say Oklahoma is, right? I mean, as far as just expectations go.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. Children of the Corn, he didn't like that. He said 10-2. Wow. It's all right. Like I said, I mean, it's you got to see it from a different angle here. I could be a little bit high on him. I mean, again, the Big 12 I think is the most sort of up for grabs conference out there. So like I said, I think that's where I've got them at. Chris has got them probably best case of 9-3. Yeah,
9-3,
so we're relatively in a vacuum there, relatively.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that pretty much wraps it up as far as Oklahoma, doesn't it, Christian? Or do you got anything else that you kind of want to add or whatever? I know we don't talk probably about the Big 12 near enough, but we've kind of said this since we started the pod months ago. Is like Big 12 is just a goddamn. There's like teams in there. There's gonna be so many surprises you see here in the Big 12, right? Whether it's Iowa State, whether it's Baylor or Tech, or you know what I mean. Somebody's gonna be up there that we didn't see, and I think most of the country didn't see, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll touch on this. This will be the last thing, and then we'll kind of segue out of Oklahoma. Okay. Children of the Corn says, do we think they make the playoffs? No. I think they can make I think they can make a Big 12 championship game, but I think either way, probably most realistic case is they'll probably shit the bed in that, or they'll be a 3 or 4 loss team. I just think it's too loaded this year to be a 2-loss team.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, do you think that last year TCU making it? I think a lot of people were surprised they won that. They lost that game against K-State, which is kind of surprising. They lost that game against K-State in the Big 12 title game, right, in overtime, and they still made it into the playoff as a Big 12 team. I was surprised. I hate to say this. I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth. I thought a 2-loss Alabama team was probably better, even though their losses and they should have won those games. We could say hypothetically whatever. And I'm not an Alabama advocate. You know what I mean? They lost to Tennessee. They lost to LSU, who were very, very good teams. LSU was in that discussion, too, to try to make the playoff. I mean, you know what I'm saying, Christian? It was surprising to me. It was good for the Big 12 as a whole, for the Big 12 to get a team into that playoff. I thought that was huge for the Big 12, right? Because they hadn't done it in a while. You know what I mean? To get somebody out of that conference into the, and then they win a fucking game, by the way, in the playoff, which helped the Big 12 case out a ton, right? I mean, that's where I'm at this year. And to answer Children of the Corn, you're exactly right. I mean, were them getting in last year crap? I don't know. I mean, you lose your, Nebraska. I could say the same about 0-1 Nebraska. Lost to Colorado by a bazillion. Still got in a national title game off the BCS standards and played Miami and got their ass, pounded. They didn't deserve to be in that game. There were other teams, Michigan. There were some other teams that were better than us that year. I just think the way it worked out last year was good for the Big 12 as far as the conference goes, right, Christian? You know what I mean? Getting somebody in there, and then they win a game, so it makes it look like, hey, Big 12 is, they got teams that can play. And I'm not knocking TCU. It always sounds like we're knocking on TCU, I think, Christian. But overall, I just think that, like, this year, the only team I can see somebody's going to have to run the complete table, in my opinion, win the Big 12, be like 13-0, and then maybe you got a shot. I guess if you disagree with me, Christian, I want to hear your thoughts on this, though.
No, I exactly agree, and I'll kind of expand upon that. TCU, I think, relatively last year, they had a pretty solid defense for a Big 12 team. Here's the thing, and this is what makes the Big 12 such a fucking toss-up, I feel like. Nobody really, even the best defensive teams in the Big 12, it's always kind of a crapshoot. And I understand people are going to go back to Oklahoma State and this and that. Well, okay, great. Oklahoma State had a top 25 defense, I think, one year, and that's fantastic. But normally, and they're one of the better teams in the conference. They proved it. Great. Most of those teams in the Big 12, though, it's so hard because you have to pretty much rely on your offense to really win you the games. You can't really go the other way and say, man, you can't really go the other way with it and say, our defense is going to have to stop them right there to win. So I think it makes a lot more of the games of, kind of a toss up right there as well. So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I think as well. So anyways, I think this kind of gets us to a good point here, Chris, and that is,
oh boy,
our fan favorite and your favorite segment on the show here, our hot take. So let's kind of get into it a little bit. Let's kind of kick it around. Let's kind of see what we got here.
All right.
So hot take, Duke wins 10 games this year. Chris, what do you think?
Oh God, man. Fuck no is my answer. And I'm going to let it right there. I'm going to keep it to you with the stats and all these things that you like to think that you're great at. Um, you know what, man? Not knocking Duke. If we want to talk basketball, I'm a North Carolina guy. My dad's a Duke guy, so I'm never, ever putting any hype on Duke. But no, this last year, would they have 9-win season? You didn't fucking play anybody. It's the ACC. There's a few teams that are really, really upper echelon. So I'm going to leave it there, Christian. Let's run down the schedule and tell me your thoughts. If you say Duke wins 10 games, we got to have a bet at the end of this discussion.
There is no way in fucking hell. I can't put that comment, but I had to say it from.
It's like you were trying to argue with me, and I'm like, I just there's no way.
There's no way. But this is a hot take that we found out there. Again, this isn't always like just shit we come up with. It's just stuff that we find kind of perusing the internet. And this is a hot take. Duke, they had 9 wins last year, right? But here's the reality of it. I'm going to start with the good for Duke fans out there. Riley Leonard, okay, he was the quarterback last year for him. I'm going to kind of pull this up here.
Not a bad player. Not
a bad player, but guess what? Not only did he lead him in passing, he also led him in rushing yards.
That's a fucking problem.
So, and he only had 700 rushing yards last year, which, hey, that's still actually not bad for a quarterback. I will say that's not bad.
But that means you can't run the ball at the running back position. You know what I mean? I love that stat when people say that in the NFL. Well, Lamar Jackson led the Ravens in rushing. It's like, well, there's a reason why you got a couple running backs, though. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I mean, the kid didn't have a terrible season. He had 33 touchdowns and 3,700 total yards. They are getting their leading receiver and best running back from last year, and Jalen Calhoun and Jordan Waters. Here's the reality of it. They were a super young team, dude. Really, really young team last year. And they should be good again this year. But, Mike Elko, he was in his first year last year. He went 9-4. They won a bowl game against UCF. I think that's fantastic. I like the direction Duke's going in. I think it's really tough, though, because I'm going to pull their schedule up right here. They start the year off against Clemson.
Loss.
Yeah. I mean, so that's probably not going to bode well. Then they jump into kind of what should be 2 easier, or actually 3 easy games, Lafayette, Northwestern, and UConn, right? They should win those if all things bodes well for them there, win those games. And they play Notre Dame. Again, we pissed the Notre Dame fan base off already this year.
Yeah, so we definitely did that.
What do they say? A happy Catholic is
well, I guess.
You're happy. I don't know. You get where I'm going with it. Notre Dame, I think will definitely win that game against Duke. So again, there's 2 losses right there. NC State, they can beat NC State. Devin Leary, their quarterback's gone, transferred out to Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. So this kind of bodes well for them.
Florida State. I mean, do we really need to? We're both relatively high on them.
Florida State, I think they beat Florida State. Or sorry, they don't beat Florida State. Florida State beats them, I should say. Louisville
to me is a question mark too.
No, I like Louisville in that game, to be honest. Louisville, because they got Malik Cunningham, who's the second coming of Lamar Jackson, and then they also have Jeff Brom from Purdue, and that guy is a tough son of a bitch over there.
Yes, he is.
Sorry,
go ahead, Christian. But I would say that Louisville, I think they're going to surprise some teams. I know you're very high on them. We got into it on a podcast about them, and I think it was Florida State playing each other or whatever it was. Maybe it was Clemson. I don't remember, but I do think Louisville is going to be very, very good this year and probably underrated, to be honest.
Wake Forest, they can definitely beat Wake Forest. North Carolina, it depends what.
That as a loss.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, that late in the season, I mean, there's a lot of. It depends. I mean, really from week to week, it depends what North Carolina team you get. They could theoretically win that game. I'm going to put it as a loss, just based off of this, though.
Yep.
So right there, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll give you Virginia, and I think they can beat Pittsburgh.
I disagree. I think I'm very high on Pitt this year. I am. And I could get into that. I think that's maybe a team we need to touch on in the future. But I think Pitt's going to be decent this year. I really do. And I don't have Duke beating them. Did Duke win 10 games, to answer your question, though, Christian, wrap it up for me? Hell no. I mean, is it a good story last year, what they did? Great. And nothing against Duke. I'm not going to bring up that they're a basketball school. I'm not going to say that first, but Duke's done some good things. They've turned that program around, especially the last 15 years. Jesus, when I was a kid, Duke was a basketball school. I will fucking go out on a limb and say that. Yeah, he says that right there, North Carolina by 30. Amen, brother. Yeah, no. So I'm not. It's not going to happen this year, especially with that schedule as an ACC schedule, and then playing Clemson right off the rip too. I mean, they got a tough one. That's a tough schedule.
Yeah, I think 6-7 wins is kind of it's a realistic expectation. Like, and that's the upper limits of that is really what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And the reason why I say that, by the way, if you're a Duke fan, you're watching this and you're getting all hyped up or pissed off, is only because they had a much easier schedule last year.
Oh my God. It was
you look at it. I mean, let me go back to it here for just a second and we'll finish this up. They lost, by the way, at Pittsburgh, 28-26. They beat Wake Forest. Big win. I mean, that's a huge win. But they got to play Virginia Tech, Boston College, Miami. They decimated them. They got to play Georgia Tech, which they lost to Tech.
Surprising.
Virginia, Kansas. I mean, Kansas was pretty damn good last year. I mean, just not. Go ahead.
No, I mean 9 wins, but they had 4 losses. I mean, I know they add teams to certain schedules during the year. It's just like good for Duke, dude. That's all I can say in football.
Yeah,
like, good for you guys. That was, I mean, Nebraska had fucking 4 wins last year, so I can't sit here and they could say, well, Chris, you're a fucking stooge over here talking about 9 wins, and you guys haven't seen a season like that, since fucking Bo Pelini. So I get it. I don't want to piss people off in that route, but to answer your question, Duke wins 10 games this year. Fuck no. I'll bet my mortgage on that.
There we go. Hey, listen, I'll even kind of take it a step further here because I like it, right? If Duke wins 10 plus games this year and they just shock the ever living shit out of people.
Oh boy.
Okay. I'll take, hold on one second. I want to think about this. I want to do something
shit down behind you. That would be great.
I'll do that. All right. I will do that. That's a good thing. I won't take all of it down. I will take the Georgia flag behind me, the chant back to back chants.
No. You're going to take that Georgia flag, the fucking banner, the fucking goddamn poster behind there, a couple of those hats. I know something about Georgia. You'll get rid of that trash.
No. Here's what I'll do. If they win 10 games this year, dude, I'll take the flag down because this is going to be the easiest thing to do. And I'll put a Duke flag back up there.
Fucking whatever, bro. Put a Bud Light poster of you and yourself drinking one at that point. Whatever.
All right, fine. I'll do that too. I'll get Courtney I'll get my wife to make me a Bud Light poster. She can do it. And
I do.
So yeah, let's go there.
All right, man. Let's go. Let's move on. What we got?
Hold on 1 second. This right here, Children of the Corn says if Duke wins 10 games, he'll buy a Georgia jersey. I like the sound of that.
Yes. Fuck yeah. If you do, post that shit in the chat, dude. Post that shit. We'll post that shit on YouTube.
100%. Forget that. We'll have it. We'll put him on.
Yeah, he says put a Husker with the fucking Duke jersey, dude. I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll put the Duke jersey myself.
If they have 10 wins, we'll put them on with a Georgia jersey. Yeah. And we'll put a Husker flag up, too. Forget it. Let's go. We got it.
No, that's all right. Let's go. What we got next, brother?
Chris, I know you're about to be heated. and I love it, okay? Because this is where the show
shit. I never get too fired up, and now I'm fired up.
This is where the show takes a slightly aggressive turn every week. And it gets a lot more aggressive. And this is what I love about it here. Our toxic comment of the week goes all the way back. I think this was last week or a couple weeks back. We put something up about Colorado football. Now, this is kind of a long read here. It's a pretty long read, but we're going to do it here for you. This is in response to what we were talking about with Colorado. We'd made a comment talking about how they looked a little bit small on the defensive side of the ball, right? That was all we said. On both lines of scrimmage, they look a little small. So, All Things Big Baller Brand writes, at I-80 boys, you might want to do your homework there, bud. You will find that both the defensive line and the OL are huge. Also, you will find that the defense is in great hands. Here's a little insight. Coach Prime has already started. I think he meant stated. I got 2 dogs at corner, dogs at safety, edge rusher, and linebackers. We have dogs. I'm the only coach in building from the outside in. Travis Hunter is more of a dog on defense than he is on offense, and he's a dog on offense. So your homework, I guess he meant, so do your homework. By the way, I wrote down your YouTube channel. So when Colorado beats TCU, who has a new quarterback and a Porsche defense, as well as other questions, which I've also said that, but and I agreed with him on that, by the way, before he said that. But please keep the same energy. Difference between good teams and bad teams is talent or lack thereof. Colorado has talent, plus they have all-star coaching, and all-star coaching staff. Do your homework.
All right, leave this up. Leave that fucker up there. I'm going to answer every single one of these statements here. All right, man. Okay. We did not come on this show, and I'm going to be very adamant about this because it kind of pisses me off, because we didn't say Colorado was trash. I think we both predicted them to be doing much better than they did the year before. Mind you, buddy, all things big baller brand. You guys were 1-11 last year. It's hard to be much worse than that. I'll leave it there. Doing my homework. I think me and Christian dig pretty deep into a lot of the teams that we talk about on here. Christian, I know personally, is a big advocate of college football. This guy knows this guy's probably forgotten more college football than you know, man. And when we made the statement, which seems to piss you off about, the DL and the O linemen, have you watched anything other than maybe ESPN, I guess? Because Coach Prime came on the Pivot podcast and said that his offensive line and defensive line are smaller than what he would have liked. That's what we were going after. Like, it's like, dude, come on, man. They do look small. And that's not saying that they're trash. We've seen D linemen, offensive linemen not be the biggest. Jason Kelsey's a perfect example in the NFL. He's a really relatively small center. Probably top 3 of all time ever to play the position. So I guess that really bothers me when, somebody calls us out as far as like saying, do your homework. No, we're going off of what we've seen and what people have said. And Coach Prime is the coach of Colorado. So yeah, you got dogs at corner. Okay. And then you say you got dogs at safety and edge rushers and linebackers. You have dogs. You kept representing that. I don't know if you're talking about Christian because he's a Georgia fan. They got dogs. I believe you guys are the Bulldogs, right? Christian? Am I
Oh,
wrong?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we're talking about them. Colorado didn't do shit last year. I mean, Coach Prime is walking into a program where he has to rebuild this thing. They are not going 11-1 this year. That's almost where I wish this guy would have just said, hey, they're going 11-1 or 10-2 or 9-3. Well, then if you're that confident, then since you're going to watch my YouTube channel and write it down, what was your prediction? That's where I get a little pissed off about the statement. It's like, I don't, like I said, I take this in good heart and this is all love, but it's like, you almost like, made it sound like we were just going to be gospel about everything this year. Yeah, we make hot takes. We talk about what we love. We talk about predictions, right, Christian? I mean, we threw this out here in our honest takes. This wasn't, I actually think we were relatively high on Colorado compared to other channels you would see. So we're not knocking on Colorado. I'm a very big fan of Deion Sanders. So I think they're going to be great this year. Travis Hunter, though, bro, I hate to break it to you. He doesn't play all 11 positions on defense. I mean, he plays one. And then he's probably going to play some offense as well, which is great. But that isn't going to solidify why your defense is going to be great. You guys, yeah, you got dogs, but I need to see it first. So, and you say the difference between good teams and bad, and bad teams is talent or lack thereof. Yes and no. I've seen a lot of teams that rely on coaching and maybe not have the most talent and be very, very successful. I think TCU last year, I think they outcoached Michigan in that game. It wasn't because TCU had more talent than Michigan did on the other side of the ball. I wouldn't say that at all. So I disagree actually wholeheartedly now I think about your statement there. I think Colorado is going to have a ton of talent, but did Deion bring everybody over that he needed to as far as the defensive side of the ball? The wide receiver coaches, the running back coaches, offensive coordinator. I mean, Deion's a confident guy. I love him to death. I think they're going to be really good this year as far as Colorado standards go. But man, I mean, as far as this tweet goes, Christian, I feel like there was a lot of hate there, man. And like, by the way, I wrote down your YouTube channel. So when CU beats TCU, actually I have TCU beating CU. So, I mean, if you want to come at me after that, please do. and I will answer any questions. But overall, man, I it just belittles me sometimes with some of these comments. It's like, you have dogs, you're talking about dogs, but none of this is proven yet. We were going on honest take of what we saw last year from a 1-11 team. Okay, I'll leave it there. Christian, give it to me real, buddy.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, I mean, and you said it best. I mean, it was a team that was 1-11 last year. However, it's a completely different team. But still, you can pick all the pieces. And again, you go back and you look at that class. They got some 5 stars. They've got probably, like, I don't know, 4 or 5-star athletes on there, a couple of 4-star athletes, which is great. But I don't know. Is USC loaded with like 4 or 5-star recruits?
Washington, maybe Oregon. I don't know. Yeah,
Washington, Oregon. They have way more of those athletes and those talent that you're talking about in the same conference that you're talking about there. Here's the problem that I have with this, and it starts off really right up there. He says, you'll find that both the D line and the O line are huge. And we kind of went back and forth a little bit in the comments. And one of the things he was saying was, they were listed as 300 plus pounds. They're 300 pounds. Well, one of the things that I brought up to this gentleman, the big baller brand over there, wannabe LeVar Ball, I'll start calling him, is you do realize that every single year at the NFL Combine, there is a huge debate that starts and ends with quarterback heights, how tall these guys are, right?
Weight, hand size, all that.
All that is up for debate. You know why? Because just like in high school and in college, they fuck the stats up. So you don't ever know how tall a guy is. They'll add 2 or 3 inches to a guy's height to make him seem a lot more bigger. They'll add 20, 30 pounds to a guy, make him seem really big. All I'm saying is, and I know he said, well, it's the black jerseys or it's the loose white fitting jerseys and it's they slim it down. Well, by that same logic that you're throwing out, wouldn't you also say, well, the camera adds 15 pounds, so really they should look 15 pounds bigger than they actually are? I mean, seriously, get the fuck out of here with that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just you get to a point where you start saying and you start believing things because it's the hip and it's the trendy cool thing to do, right? Because Deion is a polarizing figure. Travis Hunter, that number 1 cornerback Coleman, I think it was. I'm not even gonna say his first name because I'm drawing a blank here, but Coleman, the number 1 cornerback in this year's thing, they're bringing in some good linebackers. And I do agree they're going to have some good linebackers. The secondary is going to be pretty good. But just like we talked about in another segment with Oklahoma, it starts and ends up front. How the offensive line kind of plays, and they did not play great last year, and they're bringing in some cats that are 3-star athletes, on that offensive line. It's not like they're bringing in 4 or 5-star athletes.
Yeah, you're not.
Both lines of scrimmage have got to be won and established. I personally think they're a couple of years away from that.
I think that's what being able to agree on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Travis Hunter can be great, but I mean, again, like we've said, and they can have great athletes at cornerback and secondary, but again, somebody's going to get open if there's enough time to throw the football. And we watched as a walk-on running back literally ran the ball right down their frickin' throats. And that kid was not like an elite athlete by any stretch of the imagination.
Yep. And I'm gonna end this right here. I wrote down your YouTube channel, buddy, and I'll let you know at the end of the season.
We'll come back. We'll circle back to it. Don't worry. Don't you worry about that. I want to break down one last thing about this, and this is something that stuck out to me. He quoted Deion Sanders, and the quote that Deion says, "I'm the only coach building from the outside in." Why? Why are all the other coaches building from the inside out? Meaning they're building from the line of scrimmage out to the secondary.
Absolutely.
Because that's what fucking works.
Yep.
It's what's been proven to work. You try to reinvent the wheel, guess what happens?
Yeah, exactly. The wheel kicks.
It doesn't work.
Yep. And that's why me and you said he's going to be there for a couple of years, and he's going to
ask, and I'll end it on this. And I'm not trying to piss anybody off because we have some good allies here that are Nebraska fans. Ask what happened look at what happened with Nebraska last year. Their defensive line, from the inside standpoint and from a scheme standpoint was not sound, and it really kind of hurt, I think, the rest of it, right?
Yep.
And there's no secret to that. If they were able to kind of play sound up front on that defensive line, that would have changed a drastic amount. That would have made it a lot easier for the secondary to be able to not get beat deep, to be able to play more zone coverage, to be able to play man when they wanted to play it. It opens it up so much more for you from a defensive standpoint. Like I said, and I'll continue to say this, stick to basketball.
Love it. Love it.
All right.
So, all right, let's wrap it up here. What do we got?
We got one more thing here. We started this a couple of weeks ago, and that is touchdown versus turnover. Here, Chris. Touchdown versus turnover. Lane Kiffin trolls a low-scoring Florida spring game.
I love this, and I'm gonna make this really quick. We came on and said that Billy Napier, man, if he doesn't produce this year, it's going to be he's on the hot seat, right? Same thing I think about Venables at Oklahoma. Same fucking thing. I love Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's a clown, dude. The guy is a funny dude. He will say what he thinks. He's a little out there. And Christian brings up, if you guys just look at the fucking screen here, 7-7 in the fourth quarter in a spring game. If I'm a Florida fan, I'm thinking, damn, like that's all our offense is going to put up with Anthony Richardson, and I don't even want to get into that. We're not talking NFL right here and where he's going to get drafted. But Jesus Christ, I know then in the same breath, oh my God, our defense was so good. That's the reason. It's a spring game, dude. Cut the bullshit. I've watched a lot of Nebraska spring games in person, and I've watched a lot of bad offensive Nebraska spring games in person. Put up some more points than this. And I got to give some credit to Lane Kiffin. I love what he's doing. He's a drama guy, man. He wants to stir it up before the game. He likes to talk a little shit, and I love it, man. But I'm Florida. I'm a little worried, man. Your guys' offense has sucked the last couple of years. Let's just put it out there. And you guys can tell me that Nebraska's offense sucks, and that's fine. I will agree with you. But damn, dude, 7-7. I mean, I'm a little worried, Christian. Are you?
Oh, 100%. Listen, and you said it exact. I listened to a lot, just to get reference for this. When I saw the score and I saw how bad it was and everything like that, I started listening to a lot of Florida podcasts and a lot of Florida channels on YouTube to see kind of what did they say. And you know what? They all said, they all almost wanted to focus, it seemed like, on we are going to have an elite defense. And I read the comments, and that was like the number one thing. The defense is really going to be great this year, and it's going to be awesome, and elite status. That was the word that kept getting thrown around. They ranked 97th last year, Chris, in total team defense. 97th. Now, I understand, hey, they have a new defensive coordinator coming back, okay? Or they have a new defensive coordinator coming out there, and that's Austin Armstrong. He was a cat that Alabama lost out on. I think he had a cup of tea there, and then he ended up bolting for Florida, his defensive coordinator there, his first year. They're going to be better this year. I won't disagree with that. They are going to be better this year, but they're not going to be elite. You know what I mean? I mean, even if they jump up and let's say their defense gets to, I don't know, 50th, right, in the country, which, I mean, that could happen. They could be the 50th best defense in the country. I'll give them that. Right.
And that's fine. But their offense has been anemic for the last how many years, honestly? Like, that's probably their problem why they aren't competing for the fucking SEC is because their offense isn't that great. And it's like, you guys got to be able to put up in a fucking spring game more than 7 points, dude. I mean, is it not, Christian? I mean, we harp a lot about teams not having a defense. That's fine if your defense is great, but like you can only win so many games, 10-3. I mean, you're
exactly
gonna have to put points in the SEC. You're just gonna have to.
And by the way, how they won this game, they had to actually add time to the clock so they wouldn't end it in a tie.
Wow.
Just so that kid could come out and he'd miss some fucking field goals throughout this game, and so he could get a redemption, and so all that kind of stuff. So they fit the narrative how they wanted to fit it. And I'm just saying right now, I mean, it was piss poor, of an offensive job. The reason why I bring up the defense there, and we're talking about, I think they could be better, but I don't think they're going to be elite, is only because, to put this into perspective, it's not like. And I watched this. You watch Georgia spring games. You watch a lot of these Alabama, Wisconsin. You watch a lot of these, more balanced teams that are out there, right?
Yeah.
Their spring games aren't 7 to fucking 10.
Mm-mm.
I mean, yes, they still put points up, and yes, it kind of is a slugfest at points, but you know exactly what it is. Now, I'm not going to sit here. I think there was a lot of people that were, some of the Florida fans were starting to come out of the woods down there in the swamp, starting to say Mertz is the answer. I know you and me both weren't really high on him because it was the same. It's pretty much the same situation he was in at Wisconsin.
Exactly.
But he's in a tougher conference, so you expect him to do much better?
Yeah. A lot of that has to come from the fucking recruiting days when he started from getting highly recruited for Bama. That was Wisconsin spiel the entire time. Oh, he was recruited by Bama. This kid's going to be great. Started as a freshman. Kind of laid an egg, in my opinion. At the end of the day, Christian, you're 100% correct, man. I'd love to argue on this, but I mean, this is a turnover all day long. I mean, fuck. You got to score more points. If they got to put extra time on a fucking clock at a preseason game, a spring game, if I was a Nebraska fan right now, I don't know what the hell I'd be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a turnover for Florida, the Gators themselves, but I think it's a touchdown for Lane Kiffin, though, and the troll job he did there.
Yeah, my boy Lane, baby. Always, and I love that he let everybody know, man. That's what I love about that guy. People are going to call him a doofus, a stooge, a complete clown. Fucking love it, though, man. I love that.
Now, I know, and I got to say this, too, before we get off here, because some people are going to watch this, and they're going to be like, well, yes, I know their starting left tackle and their center both were out for the spring, but it doesn't matter. The depth that got ran through on that offensive line, no matter who they had, I mean, they had 10 sacks in this game, dude. 10 sacks, you know what I mean? So, and Napier at the end of it said they are going out and they are trying to go after another quarterback, too, in the portal. So,
well, that should be enough right there, and that should probably end it on that right there is all I got to say. Jesus. That's it. That when you brought this up to my attention the other day, I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, that's all I got, Christian. I don't have much more on that. That was, like I said, I hope some Florida people, they sure like to hate on us. So if they want to come in these comments and piss an SEC guy off like you right now with those Georgia banners behind you, I'll let you take them on, brother.
All I say is let's get it. You know, we're always down for a friendly spirited debate here on the I-80 Boys Show. But I think you're right, Chris. I think we're approaching the hour 22 mark. I think we're going to wrap it right here. And like I said, we look forward to getting back. What's on the docket for us is, you know, and by the way, I will say this, the last thing I'm going to say is this segues into a great topic. Our hot take next week, and I'm going to write it down here. Okay. Our hot take is Vandy will finish with a better SEC East record, and they're going to finish higher than Florida next year.
Whoa! Now you got the Florida people pissed. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. That's the way to end the show, dude. I want some drama, man. I love it, man. I'm going to leave it right what Christian said, dude. I got nothing else. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in, commenting. Children of the Corn, Daniel, love you guys. Kyler, thank you guys a ton, man. I appreciate it.
All righty. We'll catch you next week.
You bet.